How do you like
But
do you use Gibbs oil at all?
I do. I've got Gibbs. That stuff definitely works really good because we've done projects where, um, we want to show them in their bare metal state. Show off the kind of work that we can do. Where I mean, people can see a picture of it online or social media and stuff, but that's you get a way different perspective when you see the stuff in person. So,
Oh yeah.
so yeah, we've taken stuff to. Projects that we've done in the past, outdoor shows in the middle of summer in Wisconsin at Road America. Um, so it's an old racetrack, kind of southeast Wisconsin, and so we showed off a project there for a few years in a row, and bare metal, so bare metal chassis, and we brought the body down one year on the chassis while we were work in progress, stuff like that. And
Hmm.
every time we were down there, we get caught in a rainstorm, but you bring it back and you can clean everything up. So the Gibbs worked really well for that.
Hmm.
I used to use WD-40 for like everything for preservation like that, and being able to take off rusty hardware,
Yeah.
and then I used it for shaping, and I can't do it anymore. Like I can't stand the smell of that stuff.
Hmm.
So I just completely phased out the WD, and so I use the Gibbs for preservation. Then for metal shaping, I've got like the mixture of automatic transmission fluid and um, mineral spirits is
Okay.
is kind of the go-to for that.
Have you ever seen where people are using adhesion promoter?
I did, yeah. I saw a guy on Instagram. He did um like a side by side like testing of the different stuff that's out there,
I
and
think that was the
it
same
was
video I watched.
okay. Was that
I
East
can't
Coast Channel job?
maybe,
Uh,
yeah. And they were like
uh,
long-term tests that he did.
yeah, and so the adhesion promoter was that aerosol bulldog
Hmm.
stuff, and we use that a lot in the body shop. And the first restoration shop that I worked at, they
Hmm.
use that stuff all the time for
Yeah.
like doing emblems and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Um, yeah, I had never heard that before until I saw
Yeah.
that
I mean, the
that
results
posting.
look pretty legit.
Yeah, yep. I don't know what's the cost with that a can of that bulldog
It's
stuff.
not that much. I mean, I don't know if he's
Okay.
dusting it on. Typically you're dusting that type of, adhesion promoters on.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I mean, if it's that light coat, you're not putting a whole lot on there. So I mean,
Hmm.
that's time saving and cost effective. I mean, as long as it's not messing up your metal in any way.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, chemicals do weird things. But
Yeah, I know. If you use like that POR 15 metal prep, or it used to be called metal ready,
mhm.
and you use that with like a red Scotch Brite, and it leaves like a zinc phosphate. I know like shops that I worked at in the past, like the paint rep was always like, nah, no, you shouldn't be using that. But
Yeah.
it was, if you're using that and then you're spraying their product over the top of it, they're not going to
Mhm.
warranty anything. So that might have just been, you know,
Yeah.
um, a way to kind of cover their ass a
Yep.
little bit. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, we still use that stuff, the PR15 metal prep. If you got a piece of sheet metal that's got some surface rust on it,
Mhm.
whatever, to clean everything up. And
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think just not overly touching
Mhm.
everything, keeping the humidity down in the shop, everything like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it helps for sure.
Yeah. So, Trent, welcome to the podcast. I'm pretty excited to talk metal with you. And,
Yes, thank you.
I just kind of I always like going into the intros of the earlier days of what got you started in the business. But before we get into that, you want to say a little bit about yourself, your business, where you're located?
Yeah, so my name is Trent Lewis. My business is called Midwest Metalworks, and I'm located outside of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. It's about an hour and a half east of Minneapolis. I've been in the business for approximately 20 years. Got my start in doing like restoration work, body work, painting, and that moved into doing metal work as well, welding, stuff like that. So we like doing kind of a mixture of different kinds of projects. So we'll do some hot rods, we'll do pro touring muscle car stuff. We've done some um, airplane work, uh, choppers, stuff like that. So
Okay.
we kind of work on a wide variety of things.
So really, like the any kind of metal, whether it's like automotive or aviation, maybe even some marine.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, we'll do steel, we'll do different aluminum alloys, stainless steel, cast work, um, yeah, any of that kind of stuff. I would say our specialty though is definitely, working with sheet metal automotive.
Yeah.
So building body panels, we do a lot of chassis work, roll cages,
Okay.
things like that, and then all the mechanical mock-up then that's associated with it.
Yeah.
So our bigger projects we're basically building the car, we're constructing the car, and to the point then where body paint guy or shop can then take it from there. They can blow everything apart, paint it,
Okay.
and then put it back together. And sometimes we get involved with the final assembly too, since we're the ones that built the car
Yeah.
initially. It's usually kind of more efficient to have us involved in doing that final assembly process then too.
Sounds like you picked a really good lane and you're sticking to it. Um,
Yeah,
but before we really kind of go into a bit more of the metal work and all that, I want to dive into the earlier days. So like even before like when you started in the industry, maybe your
sure.
childhood, like was there anything that brought you towards this kind of stuff? Because for me when I was a kid, I had what a what is it called? It's like a motorized scooter, GoPed.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That was
Yeah.
something that actually like led me more into this earlier on that I didn't really think much of. Did you have anything like that growing up?
Oh, sure. So growing up, I was the youngest of three boys. My dad worked in the railroad industry, and so he's hard worker, manual labor. Moved up into management, stuff like that. But he's a jack of all trades, and he worked as an engine builder right out of high school. And then my mom grew up in a rural community in Wisconsin, like where, they had to do everything on the farm, and so she's very resourceful. Like all of our clothes when we were like babies and, young kids, she made all of that stuff. All of our
Wow.
Halloween costumes when we were kids, like she made that stuff. And then, growing up, my parents had rental properties. So me and my two older brothers, we were the labor, so we
Mhm.
put in, fences, we helped do, renovations, stuff like that, like the grunt work
Yeah,
of it.
yeah.
But I learned a lot from that stuff. Um, and then, when I was a kid, we had like I guess like our toys were, so we had Legos and I had an erector set and stuff like that. But then there was like back in the 80s, there was a toy called Constructs.
Mhm. I
And so
remember
it
that.
was, yeah, it was like a Lego meets like a erector set. And
Yeah.
so we had like tons of that stuff. So, and they had like, blueprints where you could put together like different things, that pre-made stuff or whatever as far as a kit. And I didn't want any part of that. I just wanted to build my own stuff. So
Mhm.
doing that stuff. And then when we were a kid, my dad got a go-kart for us, from somebody that he worked with on the railroad, and it needed like a total kind of restoration. on it. So like they took it all apart, repainted it, and my mom went to the fabric store and got some vinyl and redid the seat and everything like that. So like seeing like that and the steps and the process of doing that like
Mm-hmm.
really I think like sparked a very big interest in me. And then my dad with the rental properties, he went out to North Dakota and got like a rust-free old Ford pickup truck, and he restored that, got it painted, put in a new engine, transmission, stuff like that.
Was
You
he
know,
doing that
so
like was he a hobbyist on the car, the automotive side?
yeah, I mean, he never like took it, and this is like his quote, like he never like took it like to the level of like what I do,
Yeah.
in my shop. But I think seeing like the fundamentals and the basics of all that stuff like really inspired me to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, he was always doing like different projects like that. um Even on the weekends and stuff like that. So I think that's where I learned like my work ethic was for sure from my parents, because they were always like busy doing stuff. I mean, they certainly took the time, we did family vacations, all that other stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely instilled in me, like that work ethic. And like, if you want to do something, like you have to get out there and just do it. And then
Yeah.
certainly it was, ingrained in me, like, if you're going to do it right.
Well, it's
Don't
it's
half-ass anything.
it says a lot when, both family members are doing what they can, to put food on the table. And so like it sounds like they had multiple avenues of different types of whether it was things to provide for the family or to do in the family, to keep things moving. When you learn all those different aspects and then you're exposed to that like you were as a kid, like I can relate to that in a lot of ways and know for a
Hmm.
fact that helped me later on in my life. But it's like you don't really think about it in the moment. Uh,
Yeah. Yep.
Later
Yeah.
on it kind of hits you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure growing up it was, as a kid, I'm like, God, I've got to do this. Today we
Yeah.
got to go down and mow the grass at all these rental properties and stuff.
Mhm.
But now as an adult, like, I think you love them more for doing that,
Yeah.
to you, because that's just absolutely 100% like how I am, as an adult and as a business owner, as a homeowner,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So yeah, I think it's very, very important to do that,
Yeah. So then you were exposed to the automotive side when your dad started, doing it as a hobby, starting his own projects. Uh,
Mhm.
how did that, after his truck, I don't know how involved you were on that. Did it snowball from there? Did you get more
Yeah,
interested?
I was really young when he was doing that. I was, early, elementary school when he
Okay.
was doing that stuff. And um, we so when I was in fifth grade, we moved down to Northern Illinois, or when I was in seventh grade, sorry, we moved down to Northern Illinois, and we lived there for about 5 years. So, my parents had sold their rental properties, stuff like that, and so yeah, we never did any projects like that ever again. It wasn't until I was in, senior in high school, like hanging out with like my oldest brother's friends, and one of them was like really into. He had built a second gen Camaro when he was in high school, and so he was going through different stages of revamping that. So getting involved in helping him restore that car, and it that just kind of dug up all of those previous interests and stuff like that. and
Hmm.
and then I was moving into going to college, and I didn't want to do it. I had second thoughts, and I wanted to go to art school, and I had been accepted to art school, but I had a little bit of a doubt about going, and
So you were all in for college then?
yeah, yeah. So I, God, I think it was early senior year. I had been accepted to Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, and I was on the fence, and I heard from somebody that it was like, I don't know, second year art school, and they're like, yeah, if you have any doubt whatsoever, like don't do it.
Yeah.
Just stay back, go to university, take some classes, and then figure out if you want to transfer out of there. So that's what I did. I stayed. At that time, I had moved back up to Eau Claire, and because both my brothers were going to the university in Eau Claire, part of the UW system. And yeah, so I enrolled in classes, took generals, and I had some great um, art instructors and stuff, drawing instructors, painting instructors, and I was big into doing that. Like I stretched my own canvases and did painting and stuff like that. And then second semester I had a sculpture class, and that's where I got kind of exposed to oxyacetylene and the heat effects on metal and bending metal, manipulating it. And by the midpoint of second semester, I had just stopped going to all my other classes,
Oh
and I was
man.
only going to my sculpture
Yeah.
class.
Now that
And
sculpture class, there was no, was there any like true metal shaping type knowledge in that? Was it just heating stuff
no,
up? Like,
yeah, it was like we did a lot of like round stock, round bar.
mm-hmm.
I mean, almost like very similar. Some of the stuff that we did was very similar to like what you would see guys that do like the wire form,
Yeah.
like bucks.
Yep.
We were doing a lot of stuff like that to show, motion depth, like, things like that. So that, I mean, yeah, I certainly, continue to use like those, um, and build
Fundamentals.
off of
Yeah.
those skills and everything. And so, yeah, I dropped out, and by that time I was working on some stuff on the side. I had my own motorcycle. So throughout high school, working shitty jobs, I had saved like every one of my paychecks. And my senior year of high school, I went into the Harley dealership. We were living in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin at that time. And I went in fall of my senior year, and I bought a brand new Harley Sportster 883. And
Yeah.
then, um, unfortunately, my parents might be listening to this and they're going to hear this for the first time, but I spent all of my high school graduation money on
Sounds right.
customizing it.
Yeah.
and,
That sounds
and
right.
it was cool, but it was still like, man, there's something else that I can really do to that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what got me, by the time I went through second semester of the university, I'm like, I want to learn how to like, I want to paint my motorcycle, but I need
Yeah.
to learn how to do this kind of stuff. So I went through the technical college that's here in Eau Claire, CVTC, Chippewa Valley Technical College, and I went through the auto body program, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a related welding class, and so I was able to tap into those interests that I had like while I was a university student, and actually learn, from somebody that knows how to weld,
Yeah.
like, and learn the processes. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. So if I can combine like the art background, the auto body portion of it, along with welding, fabrication, like this is it. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I want to do. So thankfully, yeah, it only took about a year's, worth of time at the university, and the cost of doing that to like figure out what I want to do. And and so yeah, once I went through the auto body program, I went through the welding program then after that, because I wanted to learn how to TIG weld,
Mm-hmm.
and get more involved in the fabrication end of things. And so yeah, I went through those two programs at the technical college. And while I was doing that, I started working part time in the summer, towards the end of that last program. for a shop that's actually not too far from where I live right now. Um, where they did collision was kind of their bread and butter, but then they did like a lot of street rod stuff.
Okay.
So I got my feet wet there with like their different, the processes, systems, stuff like that, and
Did you end up doing any
extremely.
collision?
I did, yeah. I mean, I have over the past few years. I think it wasn't too much. I think that because the bosses knew that I just wasn't really interested in doing
Yeah.
that stuff. But I was a team player, and I didn't gripe about it. It was at times it was kind of like nice to have a break,
Hmm.
and so yeah, we just kind of help out with that stuff every once in a while, and it keeps you sharp with paint process,
Hmm.
blending, stuff like that, and but at this point, I mean, I haven't done any of that stuff for
Yeah.
like 20 years almost now,
Hmm.
so but yeah, it's and then from there, um, I had bought my first car while I was going through the auto body program, and so that was a '54 Club Coupe, and so I did like a full load on that thing. Like I took the body off the frame, I did suspension swap, engine, transmission, rear end, replaced a bunch of body panels, custom floor, a bunch of custom work on the body on it, and tons of mechanical mock-up. And so
How was your experience level at the time? Did you feel pretty confident, or did you have a lot of like times you were beating your head on the wall?
that's a great question. Ignorance is bliss.
Yes, it is.
So no, I screwed up so much stuff on that car, and but it was a learning experience
Yeah.
because I just I was so naive at the time. I mean, I just dove in, both feet first,
Hmm.
and you know, yeah, I screwed up a lot of stuff and made some poor choices, but I learned a lot. By the time I was done with that car and I was driving it, I started looking at it, I'm like, man, this is really rough what I did here, and but I don't want to fix it, so
Yeah.
I'm going to sell it and
Hmm.
move on to the next project.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great learning experience, and I documented a ton of it,
Hmm.
and that is what got me in. So it was like 3, 4 months after I graduated from the welding program. That was my final program I went through at the technical college. About yeah, 3, 4 months, something like that after the fact. I got an interview then with a place, a big restoration shop in the Chippewa Valley area here in Wisconsin, and I basically brought in my photo album and resume and or what I had for a resume, and yeah, they hired me to be a metal worker there.
Okay.
So and I was working with guys that you know um, they were at the end of their career, ready to retire. So I mean, they had come up in the '60s and '70s, like building cars, and at like the height of like the street rod stuff in like the '80s, the Boyd Coddington era, like
Hmm.
stuff like that. And so I learned a ton of stuff from those guys.
And this
Um,
was like, would you say this was the beginning of you understanding? I don't know if we're gonna call it just the metal shaping. Was that like the first real
yeah,
exposure to it? Because
yes,
there's
yep,
like there's old school hot rod techniques,
yeah,
that's cut it, weld it, grind it, it's not pretty,
yeah,
and fill it, see you later. But then you get
yes.
into the actual metal shaping knowledge of moving metal.
Yeah, there was definitely still a lot of that going on, you know, custom work with a cut off wheel and a wire feed,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, towards the end of that, they had brought in some a guy to help with a project that I was working on. It was a '39 Lincoln Zephyr, and we were doing a chassis swap, engine swap, and we were chopping the car and stuff like that. So they brought in a guy that was local to the area, and he had been around for for a long time. And he was the go-to metal guy, in town customizer, and he had chopped, I don't know, like 40 some cars, and then like I met him. I was probably early 20s at this point, and so they brought him in to help, do this car, and basically, I was going to be his helper for chopping and stuff like that, and we put in suicide door hinges, and all the creature comforts of the
Yeah.
of the era then, and he's gotten to be a really good friend over the years, so and like a mentor, and
Mm-hmm.
and we're still in touch, and I've learned so much from him over the years. Same thing with one of my instructors, at the tech college. I certainly wouldn't be anywhere I'm at without their, tutelage
Mm-hmm.
and taking me under their wing. So they've definitely, helped me, get my start in the industry, and become good mentors, friends, and stuff like that over the
Mm-hmm.
years.
That's really cool, man. Like I can relate to that in a lot of ways in different aspects. I was exposed to people that were willing to show me paint work and all that stuff. I love TIG welding, fabrication, and all that, but I never really got good metalwork exposure like that till later on.
Yeah.
And I mean, the journeys are all different. So you
Hmm.
you take the good and the bad, and whether it was the kind of work that when you first started it wasn't exactly ideal, but then that helps shape later on, what the real stuff starts to be. Because
Yeah.
you
Yep.
start seeing some of those projects that you're like, man, that could have been, like whether it was your own earlier on project and you recognize like, man, this thing it's rough. How can I do that
Yep.
better? And you start getting exposed to these things and finding those results to be able to get better.
Yeah, totally. And I think if you want to be really good at your craft, you need to, put in the time and learn from those people that you're working with. And when you've tapped all of that information and there's nothing more for you to learn and you still want more, then it's a tough decision, but you need to move on to, the next place,
Mm-hmm.
step up your level,
Yeah.
and go from there. And so, yeah, I mean, I did that. I worked at a few different places, before I got to the point where it was like, oh, I need to go on my own. I need to be able to make these decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and become the best that I can be, and be my own boss. And so that was always, I think, the ultimate goal. I wish that I kind of would have gone to like some of the bigger, name shops, and learn from those guys, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I was comfortable in the area that I was, and staying in the place that I was, and being more kind of involved in the stuff that I did outside of work. I've always had a project of my own that I've worked on, and that's what's always pushed me, starting from 2 months into the auto body program at the tech school. I went and bought my first car because it was like, this is my future. Like,
Yeah.
this is the best education that I can have. And I'm going to totally fuck this thing up, but I'm going to learn so much from it,
Mm-hmm.
and that I convinced my parents, because they were a little upset the fact that I stopped going, to the university, and
Yeah.
they saw the report card to prove it, but you know, I needed to find my place too,
Yeah.
and that wasn't it,
Mm-hmm.
for me. And not saying that it's not for other people. University is great for other people, but just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And So yeah, I've always had a project that I've worked on the side, and I've got one right now, too, that I'm working on. And it helps me out in a few different areas. I can try doing different things on it. I can push myself in other areas, prototyping, stuff like that. Um, but I also have a personal perspective then of what I'm asking, clients every, pay period. Like,
Hmm.
this is how much it costs. This is how much time, like, we're into it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So I can understand from their perspective then too,
Hmm.
you know. So that's how, yeah, I've always done it. And, I'm grateful to be able to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So then when would you, so after, let me see if I'm trying to get timelines right here. So you were working in that shop. Was there anything after that where you really stepped up the the metal shaping knowledge, where you really started diving in far into it? Did you go on your own? Like what happened after that?
Yeah, so I got exposed to, with working on that one project with that guy. Like, he showed me more like TIG welding, like sheet metal. He's like, yeah, you got to kind of stop doing wire feed
Mm-hmm.
sheet metal and do more TIG. And I'm like, well, yeah, I learned how to TIG weld and stuff, and I've always done, I did roll cages and stuff at that shop, and did chassis stuff, TIG welding, and all the aluminum stuff and everything got TIG welded. But he's like, yeah, you should be TIG welding your sheet metal. So started working with that more. And they sent me back to school, like a night class for doing machining. And so
Mm-hmm.
I learned kind of the basics of, mill work, lathe work, stuff like that. But it just, at the point it was, we were doing like that high end street rod, but then it was, their bread and butter was like restoring factory, restoration of muscle car stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't challenging enough, and I was
Mm-hmm.
getting bored, and I needed to do something else. So I left there, worked at a smaller shop that did just a lot of like street rod stuff, and I could do everything: metal, body, paint, get involved in assembly and stuff like that. So that was kind of a nice break to be able to do all of that. But then at that time, I started collecting my own equipment
Mm-hmm.
then too. I started buying stuff, and my boss, I think he knew what was up because a lot of the stuff I was having delivered to the shop.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I bought like a power bead roller from
Yeah.
Bailey, and like, stuff like that. And I think he kind of knew what was going on. and
Mm-hmm.
and so at about that time, so I was in a car club. We had a shop, and I was chopping cars and doing some work out of our shop for, myself, and for some of our car club members and stuff. And I was getting I was getting approached by some people about doing some work on their own stuff. I'm like, okay, so I'm kind of making note of, who they are, what they want, done project wise, stuff like that. And then I got a call from a guy that had just moved from the East Coast to La Crosse, Wisconsin. So that's like, I don't know, hour and a half south of us. And he's like, I've got this car. It's a 34 5 window coupe. I've had it since I was 16, and I want to finally finish it. I just retired from New Jersey, moved down here. My kids, live here, my grandkids, stuff like that. So I want to get this thing done. Here's a list of what I want to do. And so I'm like, yeah, I would love to do this project. I said, I just don't have a place to work on it right now. I said, I've got a shop for my car club, but we just had to move out of there because they're going to tear the building down. It's an old building. Um, so I said, to be totally honest with you, I said, I'm looking at, getting married and buying a house in the next couple of months. So if you can, hold on until I've got, a house with a shop and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'd love to do it at that time. And so he's like, oh, I've waited this long. I don't have a problem, waiting a little bit longer. And he's like, you come recommended. everything. So I'm like, all right, sounds great. Let's just stay in contact. And so I think it was honestly, I think it was like a couple months later, I got married and bought a house that had a shop on it and started my business essentially all in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 27 years old. I should have had my head examined, but again, I'm jumping into it both feet forward, and I didn't look back, and we got that first project in, got it done, turned out amazing, and that's what got the ball rolling in my own shop. And so I was working on that first project. I would work my day job, and I would come home, and I'd hang out with my wife for hour, 2 hours max, and then I'd be out in the shop at the house, and I'd be out there until it was like 11 o'clock, and then it became midnight. Then it was like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
towards the end there. And I had to be up at 6 o'clock to get, ready for work the
That's a
next
lot,
day. And
man.
oh yeah, so I did that for about 6 months, and then I finally came to my boss, and I'm like, still a little like, leery about doing it.
Yep.
I asked if I could work part time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, well, let me think about it. And so he came back the next day. He's like, yeah, I thought about it, and like, I need somebody full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I said, this is my opportunity, and I appreciate everything that you've done for me, but I need to see this,
Yeah,
through.
yeah.
So,
Well,
I left at that time.
I want to take a little note on, you're saying whether you needed to get your head examined from buying a house with a shop in the backyard so early. I see. I bought a house last year, my
Yep.
wife and I, and it's got a shop in the back. This is where I'm actually sitting here right now in the studio shop, whatever, and recording this podcast with you. And I'm 38. I
Yeah.
wish I would have done that so much sooner because it's
Yeah.
awesome being able to work on whether it's your own project or something else, like to have your own space, to have a little bit of land, like 100%. I so wish I would have done that earlier.
Yes. Yep.
And you
Yeah. So
started investing in yourself early too.
I did. Yeah. And so, I mean, at that time, um, prior to that, I was, single guy. So I had I called it like a Unabomber apartment.
Uh
It
huh.
was just a studio apartment. My bed was in a closet. My
Yeah.
kitchen was in a closet. And the only time that I would be at home was to shower, sometimes eat, and sleep and do laundry.
So if the
And
cops would have looked into you, they would have been like, "What is this guy doing?"
oh yeah, yeah. Like it was, yeah, it was, and the place is crazy too. Like it was 100% haunted. Like I'd come home from work, and all the cupboard doors and the drawers were open, and I would go like into the bathroom. I would shower, at the end of the day, especially hot summer day in
Hmm.
Wisconsin like this. And so I would come out of the bathroom, and I would look over the kitchen, and the cupboard doors are open again, and all the drawers are
Oh
pulled out.
man.
Yeah.
Was
And
it an old
so,
house with like some history to it, or?
yeah, it was like a weird old brick building, 3 floors, downtown Eau Claire. And you would just hear like weird shit at night too. Like there was one time I had my foot hanging out of the covers, and I felt somebody like grab my foot.
Oh man.
And another time I was in the shower and showering, and I felt somebody like rubbing my neck, kind of thing. But
Jesus,
like
man.
the scariest thing was, so before we got married, my girlfriend who's now my wife, um, was at the apartment during the day, and I was at work, and she was on her laptop talking to her mom on Skype, and so her mom's like asking her how everything's going, blah blah blah, and so she's like, said something about me, and she's like, oh no, like Trent's at work right now, and she's like, oh well. who's the guy that's standing over your shoulder then?
Holy shit.
So she like left the apartment, and like I get home and she's sitting on the stoop of the apartment building. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I'm not going in there right now.
Holy shit.
So yeah, yep. So yeah, I think it was shortly after that that we moved out and got our house and stuff like that.
As soon as you left, all that stuff was gone.
Yeah, it definitely didn't follow us there,
Yeah, yeah.
but we've definitely, um, when we moved into our first house, we moved into our second house, and then over the years, um, you do like a positive cleanse.
Yeah.
You're burning sage and
Yeah.
things like that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't
Especially
know if
after
I necessarily,
that.
yeah, I don't know if I necessarily believe in it, but if
Uh-huh.
it's gonna keep those things away for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because over time, you say stuff like that of I don't know if I believe in it, but then you have these weird things happen to you, and you're like, yeah, but that happened,
Yes, yeah,
and it's your story, but you felt it.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So aside from the haunted house, uh, that that's after that is when you were able to get your own place.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, bought the first house, shop, got married when I was 27. Yeah, and for I don't know, 6 months or so, kind of burning the candle at both ends, so to speak, working a day job and first customer projects um, and
Was
then
that a time period of like getting hyperspeed? As far as like your knowledge, because the stress of the whole thing is heavy, but
yeah.
you're taking in a lot of information.
Oh, 100%, and at that point, I was seeking out more of those experts, not only the people that I had there as far as, mentors and things like that already, but then, I had started doing, machining and stuff like that. So, um, there's a shop in the town that I live in, like where Friday nights, all like the old time hot rodders go and hang out, and they would drink beer and tell all these stories. And so I found myself coming down there and hanging out with those guys and getting to know some of them more, and they were either mechanics or machinists or welders or body guys, and so just learning more from them,
Hmm.
learning the different machines, and then they're like calling me up and they're like, hey, I've got a line on like a lathe, it's a good machine and it comes with all this tooling and stuff like that, and we can get it for a really good deal, and
That's cool.
or I can, but I'm willing to sell it to you just for what I can get it for, and if you're interested, you can have it, kind of thing. And so yeah, I started collecting more and more equipment then, um, and taking on more and more projects. So, another important build that I did was a 41 Willys 3-window coupe original steel car, and the guy wanted like a 1960s gasser, with it. So he had a blown Hemi he wanted to put in it, straight axle. Um, recess the firewall, hood scoop, um, roll cage, and so that was a very big undertaking, that project. A few other projects that we had in there, um, and then I got contacted to help out another shop, for a big, like, at that time they hadn't really announced it yet, but it was going to be a show car,
Hmm.
and I didn't really know what show it was going to be, but it was going to be, a high end project, and wanted to know if I'd be willing to, build some parts for it. And they needed rocker panels, and they needed some quarter panels, stuff like that, tail panel and stuff like that built for it. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And so came down, looked at the project, and started making some parts for it. And And then that just got to be more and more involved in doing that stuff. And at that time, I was a English wheel guy. I didn't have power
Mhm.
hammers or anything like that. I had some planishing hammers and things like that, but um, I hadn't gotten into the full power mode yet,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I just kept getting more and more involved with stuff and building stuff, and the guys that they had, working on the project, they weren't really up to speed on, necessarily panel fit and how the order of operations of things. And so they asked me to just come on board, if I could come on board like maybe every other week. And so I started doing that. And so then eventually it was just like, oh, I'm going to be here every work or
Mhm.
every week working on this thing. And and then they kind of announced, they're like, well, we're building this to go to Detroit, Alabama. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was a hell of an opportunity to have. I think I was at that point, I was probably like 30, you know,
Okay.
and so, I mean, what a great project to be involved in. And so we actually went out to Detroit a couple of times to do research. We got to sit in on judges' meetings, and the last time that I was out there, Charlie Hutton had a project in there. Greening Automotive had a project in there. Craig Nath, that built the Cadzilla, was in the judges meeting, and I'm like standing there next to all these guys, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like this is just, it's like
That's
Twilight
awesome.
Zone.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's a cool
and
feeling, man.
it is, yeah. And so that car ended up going 2016 to Detroit
Okay.
uh, to compete, and they won a Pirelli Grade 8 with it. And the car that won was the 39 Oldsmobile, old school,
Mhm.
built by Customs and Hot Rods of Andis.
Okay.
Yeah, I think was it Levi Green from Hammer Fab. I think
Mhm.
he was the main like metal guy on that.
I can't
Um,
remember. That was 2016, you said?
yeah, yeah,
I don't know if I made it to that one. It might have been the year after. I'll look. If
okay,
I find pictures and I was there as 2016, I know I'll have that car in there. So I'll
okay,
post that up later.
yeah. So it was maroon colored 1938 Graham, shark nose Graham was the car that we built.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was a four door. We turned into a five window coupe. Um, so yeah, it was a major undertaking. Um, super grateful to be a part of it.
So, okay,
And
would that be the first time you were exposed to like I would consider this like your peers,
yes,
like the people who really give a shit about this kind of stuff and are all in on it.
100%. Yeah. Yep. So it's like, all right, the guys that I've read about and seen on TV, like I'm now like in their house,
Yeah.
so to speak. So yeah, it was definitely daunting, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm here for a reason too,
Mhm. Mhm. You
and
got to
I'm going to
remember
make the
that.
most of it. I'm going to learn what I can from these guys, like watch everything that they're doing. So the 2 years that I went out there to that show, like doing research, like I made notes of all kinds of stuff,
Mhm.
and what specifically are they doing as far as engines, transmissions, plumbing wise, like, is it visible? Is it not visible? Gaps, like, specific hardware that they're using, is
Mhm.
this all custom or are they using some other stuff,
Yeah.
and then seeing where they ended up, in the standings. These people make the grade 8, or did they win?
Mhm.
Most of that stuff, like the 2 years that I went out there, you could easily identify who was going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there was some stuff that was like questionable. It's like, man, they made the
Yeah.
grade 8, but
Mhm.
um, they've got a specific criteria,
Yeah.
too, that they follow. I don't necessarily agree with some of that stuff, but that's their stipulations. That's
It's
what
coming
they.
up more and more in podcasts that I listen to.
Yep.
That
Yep.
conversation
So
in that show in particular, and I've seen, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen the same thing myself, and you see great
yeah.
cars that really should be in the grade 8, but something knocked them out.
Yep.
And then they're taken over by, I hate to say it like this because there's a lot of cool aspects to these cars, but you are being judged, at the highest standard for that show.
Oh yes.
And you see a
Yeah.
lot of cars that are subpar making it in there.
Yep.
And that's not to say that they're still not a great car,
Yep.
but if you're going to this high standard, a
Yeah.
lot of great cars, we've all watched it. A lot of great, great cars get knocked out for something that, I mean, I don't know enough about it. I'm sure there's some maybe outdated rules, or I don't know. I know that some of the judges that are in there are incredible people. Guys
Hmm.
like uh, man, why am I drawing a blank on him right now? Um, Big in the metal shaping world. Man, I apologize, man. I can't think of his
Oh,
name.
no worries.
Um, I'll remember it later. But there are some people in there that are, they're not just like hobbyists. They're actual people who are some of the most knowledgeable people. Faye Butler,
Yes. Yep.
and his knowledge is incredible. Like
Yeah.
he has it down to the science of a lot of this stuff.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, it's interesting you brought up Faye Butler because kind of halfway through building that car to go out to the Autorama was when I like really started ramping up things, the kind of work that I was doing, and it was, a good paying, gig. So I was able to invest a lot more money into the shop, into equipment, because I'm always, even now to this day, like I look at stuff and I'm like, there's got to be a better way of doing it.
Hmm.
Either efficiency or increasing the quality.
Yeah,
I'm never satisfied with stuff. I mean, I definitely give myself,
some grace.
recognition,
Yeah.
yeah, for things. You have to do that, but
Hmm.
I do a lot of self-reflecting, all the time. I mean, the shop's next to my house, so it's kind of a curse that way. I mean, I'm out at night and I'll just come out and just kind of walk around the projects and stuff. And it's all on my own time.
Hmm.
And I'm looking at things and I'm like, okay, so here's kind of the next step of how we can do things. Or, this turned out good, but what can I be doing differently next time? And
Yeah.
so it's just, you're always chasing efficiency, chasing that perfection,
Hmm.
too. And come to terms that you're never going to get it, but I'm never going to stop learning. The time that I stop learning is the day that I die,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of thing. And
That chase of
so,
perfection is something that plagues a lot of us. You
oh,
know.
yeah, I think, yeah, anybody that's it's a perfectionist, like they want to do, whether you're sweeping the floor or you're, laying out your schedule for the week, or, you're building this part or you're painting this car, like you're wanting to do the absolute best that you can at that time,
Yeah.
and that's how you should be, in my opinion, especially if you're going to be, if you're going to put yourself in an arena to compete with the best, like you
Hmm.
need to have that attitude,
Yeah. Yeah.
too. And it's a confidence thing. I mean, it's not necessarily like you're arrogant or, ego driven or anything, but
Hmm.
you just want to do the best that you can. And
Yeah.
I mean, why the hell wouldn't you?
And that's something that you'll just keep chasing, and it can go. I feel like it can go real negative on you if you don't give yourself some grace on things,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
you're gonna have those moments where something doesn't come out exactly how you wanted it, and then you're gonna
Oh
fight
yeah.
the time frames. You're gonna fight the you know name the excuse or the thing that comes up that keeps you from getting it to 100%. But
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, if you at least tried, even if it didn't
Yeah.
get to 100% and you made an attempt, you still got it to a really good point. And
Yeah.
sometimes you got to call it to where it's like, okay, well, I learned that now, and now I can apply that on the next one. And then that next one, it's not even a thought. You're throwing it in. It's
Hmm.
automatic at that point.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You have to learn how to take the hits, because not everything just falls in its place, and every project's a little bit different. You can have some projects that are just, fighters,
Mm-hmm.
and so you got to be able to take it on the chin,
Yeah.
and the next day get up and start all over again. Tomorrow's a new day kind of thing,
Yeah.
and not necessarily how you start, it's how you finish. So if you can finish the week,
Mm-hmm.
on a positive note, and then, if it's not, even like, if there's, things aren't going your way, you've got to find a way to take find the positive in everything,
Mm-hmm.
and move forward with it. It's like,
Yeah.
well, God, this week sucked. Well, next week can only be better. I don't
Mm-hmm.
see how it could get any worse, kind of thing.
Do you
So,
do you have a project in particular that like pushed your limit, to that really breaking point?
um, yeah, I mean, the first project that I did, my
Yeah.
first ever project that I did, my 54, just because, you know, I I didn't have a baseline,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have, and it was still, early 2000s. So I think I started on that car in 2003, I think it
Mm-hmm.
was, and so I had to do so much research on my own. I didn't really know anybody that could help me at that time. And but I like doing that too.
Mm-hmm.
I like the construction of the project more than I like having access to the finished product.
Yeah.
When the project's done, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to move on. Mentally,
Yeah.
I've already moved on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for the next project, kind of thing. So, um, but
What did you learn that really stuck with you after that project? Like what was the thing that really like I'm not doing that again, or that at least kept you going, kept you still stayed motivated?
God, that's a good question. Like, you mean a process that I shouldn't be
No,
doing,
no,
or?
just because we get these breaking points. And like
Sure.
sometimes it could have been like an outside influence, someone you were talking to that was just like, "Hey, yeah, I know this sucks, but like you still have to keep doing something."
Yeah. Well, I was building that car at a very interesting point in my life, I would say, because I had gone through the university and I didn't want to do that. And so, I'd started with the auto body program, and I got that car, literally a few months into it. And my girlfriend at the time, she was graduating from the university that spring, and she didn't like the fact that I was spending all my extra, free time, working on the car. And I'm like, well, this is my future.
Mm-hmm.
And she just basically didn't like that. She kind of gave me the ultimatum: it's me or the car.
Yeah.
And I kept the car.
Yeah.
And it was a hard thing to go through at the
Mm-hmm.
time, but I knew that, like, at this point I need to be selfish, and um I need to figure this stuff out, and I need to build this car.
Yeah.
Like, this is my future, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm glad that I did that, but at that time, sure, that was 100% very difficult,
That's
to
one
do
of those
that. And
moments where I've said this before to people, whether I'm giving them advice or, just kind of on the same subject. Your career's not going to tell you it doesn't love you anymore,
yep.
and that's a choice right there that you better be sure that that's the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it goes south for a lot of people who choose the
Mhm.
person over the career. And I'm not, not to say that there aren't bad careers for some people, but if you knew that that's the thing, this is me, like this is part of my life,
Yeah.
and you go against that, it doesn't work out very good most of the time.
No, no. And I mean, it's always been like a, fine line between how far can you push, your professional life with
Hmm.
your personal life and the sacrifices that you make. And I've been doing it long enough now and I've been married long enough now. I've been married for about 16 years. Um, so I mean, my wife is a huge supporter of everything that I do, and I couldn't have done what I've done in the past, like going through, doing that car for the Autorama and competing at that level without having her as like a support system.
That's
So
so important
it's
for us, man.
Oh, like, yeah. I mean, your investment in yourself, like with tools and equipment, and, like to me, that's like, that stuff comes and goes. Like, if you don't have a support system,
Hmm.
mentally, emotionally, and somebody that can help you push yourself, like, I don't know how you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can continue to try to achieve,
Hmm.
or perform at a high level without having that.
Well, it gets tough. I
Um,
mean, you've done it by yourself, and you know what? If you're single and you're just doing those late nights, if whether you're doing the job during the day and then finish, working on your thing at night, that'll
yep,
wear down on you, and you can be as strong as you want to be, but man, it's so much better having that extra support system behind you.
it is, yeah. And like she sees things completely different than what I do, and sometimes that's what I need. I need like a, different perspective to be like, why are you worried about this? Like,
Hmm.
that's out of your control. Like, this is what you need to be doing,
Yeah.
or in employee, relations and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And I've been fortunate to have great people to work for me, and they understand like how crazy I am with how I want things and organized, and certain things done in a certain way, and they get that,
Yeah.
too, and they're receptive of everything. So and then, having the clients then too that allow you to do that.
Hmm.
I'm at the point in my career where they're coming to me with a project, and they've got kind of some loose kind of, vision of it, but they want us to fill in the gaps and like do what you think is going to be the
Yeah.
best, and build it how you would build it. And it's like,
Hmm.
God, this is the best thing ever. Like, I've got the best job ever.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think having a support system, having the right employees working for you, having the right clientele, like, it's just a recipe for, you know,
Yeah.
great things to come.
But that's something that's earned too, because like
Oh
we
yeah.
started off with your early days. All these things that happen from the beginning
Yeah.
led to that point that you can have that.
Hmm.
It's not something that like you're not going to start, a shop and then all of a sudden you've got the perfect customers that are paying whatever, you tell them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of heartache, a lot of fucked up stuff, a lot of,
Yeah.
the fact that you're still standing and still there is where you're earning that to where you can get to that point and do those things.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. And it's not for everybody. There's some employees that I've had, where, or other shops that I've subcontracted with, where they think that, it's just easy to run a business, and
Hmm.
it's not. Like, it's a very difficult thing to do,
Yeah.
and you've got to put in your dues before, you know, you can see some success happening,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
there's a
over that time, you start developing your standard, and
yes.
that really dictates a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep. So we've done stuff for, I mean, a lot of our clientele, they're they've been executives for corporations, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're, the, so they're very successful people, and they're very organized,
Mm-hmm.
too. And so when they come into the shop and they see like how organized we are with um, with our systems, with our scheduling, things like that, like, the cleanliness of things, like how the parts are, stored, processed, inventory and stuff like that. Like that's you're playing to their strengths too. Like
Mm-hmm.
they get it. Like
Yeah.
that's what they like. They like seeing that kind of stuff. And I've had one of our continued clients. He calls our shop the operating room because it's so clean and
Yeah.
organized and stuff. And that's what I like. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how I was brought up. My parents were like that. My dad's like a total psycho. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's measuring out from the baseboard, like how far the rugs are from the baseboard, like
Yeah.
that's mental. I
Mm-hmm.
know that's mental, but
Yeah.
that's how I am
Mm-hmm.
too, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to, we were talking about Autorama, Faye Butler. So yeah, about kind of halfway through that project that I was working on to compete at the Autorama was when I really started ramping up, my knowledge and getting more experience in doing, the sheet metal shape and stuff like that. Because yeah, prior to that, I was a English wheel guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, God, this is just, it's so tedious. There's got to be a quicker way of doing things, a more, accurate way of doing things. And so that's when I got my Polmax machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bought my Polmax machine. I started doing thumbnail shrinking on that. I bought Faye Butler's book, and I was having some difficulties, and so just out of desperation, I had nobody in my area to, reflect on that stuff. I emailed Faye, and I'm like, well, I'll never hear from this guy. He's got way more important things to do. And so it was like 2 days later, I get a phone call and talk to Faye Butler for like an hour on the phone. And next thing I know, I'm booking a plane ticket to go fly out and work with him in his barn in Western Massachusetts for a
That's
week.
awesome.
Yeah. So like, and then as soon as I walked away from that, I'm like, I need to buy a power hammer.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back home and went through Steve Powell that was doing the replica Pettingill power hammers,
Yeah.
and I ordered or commissioned him to build me a 2M Pettingill replica, and
Mm-hmm.
so that was my first power hammer. And then the shop that I was working at, prior to leaving and starting my own shop, they had an old Milwaukee planishing hammer, so I was able to buy that from them. And so that's the Milwaukee that I still use now.
That's cool.
And yeah, and so yeah, it just kind of from there, that's what really accelerated,
Mm-hmm.
doing more of the, at that point I was already doing mostly TIG on sheet metal,
Yeah.
and then walking away from that, like now, like 99.99% of the stuff that we weld sheet metal wise, even chassis wise, is
Mm-hmm.
is all going to be TIG
Yep.
welded.
Real
It's just
quick,
way more efficient.
after
Yeah.
your time with Faye, how did your understanding change?
Quite a bit, because it's a science based, it's metallurgy based,
Yeah.
um, and so yeah, it was a completely different approach. Because before it was like, I'm gonna do this, but because I think that it's kind of right, but I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna do it kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing and see what happens. So yeah, it definitely changed. I would say though, after we did the Autorama car, like I was burned out and I needed a break. And at that point, I started working with the technical college as like a part-time instructor. And so then I got offered a full-time instructor position. So I became a full-time instructor there. And I was still doing some, personal projects and stuff on the side. But my first year, I pretty much shut the shop down and just concentrated on teaching. And I was teaching welding, fabrication, and then I became the metallurgy instructor then too. And so I had some knowledge in it, doing what I had done before, and I had taken metallurgy classes and stuff too in the past. But um, being who I am and wanting to be, fully prepared for the day's events, like I basically just put my nose in a book for the first year that I was an instructor
Mm-hmm.
and taught myself all the ins and outs of metallurgy and stuff like that. So, when I took over the metallurgy classes, it was pretty much just nothing but lecture. And I'm like, we need to bring in and implement some more labs, to this stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
I tapped into the stuff that I knew, I was building my own dies for my Polmax machine. I was case hardening them or, doing different heat treatments and stuff to it. I'm like, well, that's what I'm going to do. We're going
Yeah.
to do this stuff and it's going to relate to our, uh, different material properties and stuff like that. So we'll do hardness tests, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that really ramped everything up because if you think that your craft, learn how to teach it, and
Yeah.
then you're gonna get into the deeper learning
Mm-hmm.
of that, like the understanding of everything.
Yep.
Because you've got a voice in your head like telling you what to do and why you're doing it and stuff, but you need to figure out how to emit that to an audience that doesn't necessarily learn the way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in that field are going to be visual learners. So you're going to do lots of different visual demonstration, hands-on stuff like that. But you need to provide written instruction, verbal instruction, stuff like that. So I had to kind of tap into all that stuff and
That
and
that's a skill on its own because trying to transfer what's in your head with
yeah.
this type of stuff is like it gets challenging sometimes. And the
It
person who
is.
you're trying to explain it to, one might get it. The other one needs it explained a different way, and you have to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to articulate that or how to actually show it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And then learning from your peers then too. So,
Hmm.
I started doing some different labs and stuff, where, I was doing kind of um, the introduction, the pre-work, stuff like that, doing demonstrations and stuff, and then breaking them up into, different groups of, different types of learners essentially. And then where they would have to communicate together. So they're having to learn different kinds of, I mean, you're not only teaching them how to do the stuff from metallurgy, but you're having to get them into groups where they've got to talk to themselves and figure stuff out on their own and figure out a different language with all of that then too. Not
Hmm.
necessarily they're not working with their friends, they're working on people that they don't know. And
Yep.
so, and that's part of just, your everyday work skills that you've got to figure out too. Because the next stop for them after they were going through the welding program was real world. And
Hmm.
you've got to learn how to get along with everybody and find a common language with everybody. And so it was great to watch that stuff unfold. And
Hmm.
when you've got somebody that comes into a program that doesn't even know what a vice grips,
Yeah. Yeah.
is,
Which
and then
sounds
they're
crazy, but it's real.
yeah, and then they're leaving at the end of that, with being able to hand in a report on microstructural analysis and metallurgy, on different heat treatments. Like
Hmm.
it's pretty rewarding work,
Yeah.
So it's the same as building a car,
Hmm.
like it's overwhelming when you think of it as a whole, but when you break it down and you do like the scaffolding technique where you're building off of all this stuff, you're building a foundation and then you're building out from there. It's kind of the same thing. So you're
Yeah.
you're watching these people like build confidence in themselves and then being able to do all that stuff. And that's what's great about teaching people.
Yeah. So, I mean, in your time of teaching, what are the things that what are the fundamentals you would pick that would change most learning processes for people. Because I say that with saying our industry has no standard,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So every shop has its own standard. Everyone has their different way of doing things.
Hmm.
And to me, when it comes to metalwork, there are so many missing fundamentals. I mean, the fact that you're saying that you guys were understanding metallurgy and stuff like that, the programs that I were in, none of that was ever talked about. And
Yeah.
I wish I would have had something like that there to where
Yeah.
I could get a different fundamental that would have put me light years ahead than
Hmm.
what I ended up learning way later on. So,
Well, that's yeah. So that's the difference between education and um, being like a training facility,
hmm
so to speak. And unfortunately, that's what it's becoming.
yeah.
I don't want to get like political, but that's just the how it's become,
hmm
because you've got certain industry that's like, no, they don't need to learn this. They need to know this,
Yeah.
and that's it, and so but you've got to have a voice for all of those. And so I've been trying to get involved with being parts of advisory committees and things like that, because I make up, there's several businesses even in our area that does custom work, and they need to have a voice because the auto body program currently right now they shut it down for this last year, but and they're bringing it back. But prior to that, they weren't teaching hammer dolly work. They
hmm
weren't teaching, spreading Bondo. It was
Yeah.
basically like we're replacing panels and sanding bumper covers for
hmm
paint and replacing sensors.
Pro-
Well, that's great for a collision shop, but what about the dozen custom shops that are in the area that
yeah.
need people that can paint parts and they can do panel fit, or there's a dent in there they need to knock out, they need to do hammer and dolly work,
hmm
things like that. So I'm trying to get involved with that stuff so that there's a voice for those shops,
Yeah.
because not everybody wants to do collision work,
hmm
and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But there's a whole nother part of the field that has a big footprint in annual revenues,
Yeah.
around the country, and we also need to have a voice too, because we're looking to hire those graduates as well.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, after I left, I think it wasn't too long after that, but they moved all the metallurgy classes to a 2-year program. So they don't even
Hmm.
get that in their 1-year program
Wow.
anymore, which is very unfortunate,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to know not only how to, but you also have to know why.
hmm
And if you don't know why, then how do you know that what you're doing is going to work?
hmm
So that was a great thing uh, from Faye Butler, and what Faye has done to the industry. He's kind of put like a basis of the scientific, and he's done a good job of the vocabulary of things
Yeah.
too, having a standard vocabulary, because that's another thing, like people can talk about something and it means totally different than what you think it does.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
knowing the difference between shape, form, and stuff like that,
hmm
just as an example, like that's important to know the difference of it, and that you're talking about the same thing too.
Yeah.
Um, and I know Faye does a lot with education and
hmm
things like that, and that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually
You
got
know,
to meet him this year at Autorama, and I think I talked to him for maybe like 30 or 45 minutes straight, and we were just getting real philosophical because I do
yep,
enjoy a good philosophical conversation, and he's very good at that. And
yes.
so had some great conversations with him. Hopefully in the future we'll get him on the podcast and go over philosophy again and metal shaping. Um,
Oh, he'd he'd definitely be a good one to have on the podcast, and
Yeah.
he could definitely elaborate more on education and
Yep.
training and things like that
Yeah.
too.
He said he
He's
was
definitely
interested
very
for sure.
passionate.
So,
Yeah, well, that's good.
make something happen for the future there, because that's a voice that needs to be heard of more. You know.
Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
there
Yeah.
are.
I think knowing the pathways that you can take,
Mhm.
to get to where you want to be. If you want to be a metal shaper and stuff like that, where do you begin? What's the stuff that you should be paying attention to? Things like that. Because the path that I took is far different than say somebody else that's
Mhm.
shaping metal. But as long as you're in the destination that you want to be, or you're working towards that,
Mhm.
and you're continuing to use a basis that's going to make you successful, that's what really matters.
Mhm. There's a subject I wanted to talk about. We've been dancing around it a little bit, and it's like you're saying they've moved things from understanding metal to like this production mentality. And not to
Hmm.
say that there isn't a place for a production mentality, but when I start thinking of where we went wrong with understanding metal, I start thinking about when things were being hand built and coach built, to things going on an assembly line. And we started looking at things as far as being replaceable in and out, and replacing imperfections with plastic filler. And that seems to be what's basically taken over. So at some point, I don't know how far you understand, those kind of moments, where we went from design work to uh, hand built things to production. Have you put much thought to any of that and how that affected things way long ago?
um yeah, I don't know, that's a yeah, I would say, I mean, as far as like how they're making things nowadays, they
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't, it's kind of a cliche to say that, but they don't make things like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
My Polmax machine is, that's from the early 1950s, and I've
Yeah.
never had to do anything to it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing still runs amazingly.
Yeah.
Um, my Miller Aerowave, knock on wood, that's from late 90s. They only built those things for about 5 years, I think from 95 to about 2000. And, it sounds like a jet engine, when you start it up, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing welder,
Mm-hmm.
that has done amazing things, and what it was designed and built for. And I mean, geez, I would put that thing up against the Miller Dynasty any day,
Yeah.
the week, and that it's going to outlast them too. They just don't build things like that anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just gotten to be more of, um, well, should we build things that are like maybe like 75% good, and
Mm-hmm.
then we build up a parts and tech line then
Yeah.
to when things go wrong, like then we can just sell them on parts and somebody to service everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just kind of unfortunately gotten to be kind of part of that. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's definitely unfortunate, because I was gonna bring this part up later on, but we're on it. So you're talking about your power hammers and stuff like that. Even look at English wheels. Look at the English
Mhm.
wheel of today versus like a Ranelagh English wheel, like a full cast iron,
Oh,
uh,
sure.
like, or the Pettingell machines. There's a few companies out there that they're going off of the old build quality, and
Yeah.
like, how much does that play a role when you have just a tubular frame versus a full cast iron machine? Like, How's the difference?
Sure.
How do you feel in the difference of the two?
Oh yeah, I mean the quality wise, difference. So I've got the one um, uh, uh, hammer that I got from Steve Powell. That's a weldment,
Mm-hmm.
so made out of plate steel. I mean, it's a phenomenal piece of equipment, and Steve was great to work with. And I mean, he builds everything except for the motor of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he makes the spring, he machines all the parts. Like, I mean, amazing craftsman. But you compare that to a cast iron hammer,
Mm-hmm.
the metallurgy of cast iron and the mechanical properties of that, like the deadening of that blow when it comes down and hits on that die is far different than something that is made out of like solid metal, like a weldment, or even tubing would be even a little
Yeah.
bit worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you know the mass production of things, the cost of pouring cast iron, the weight of that, so like my Powell hammer was maybe like around 3,000 pounds, like
Mm-hmm.
with the column and everything. I have no idea what a cast version of that would be, but like just trying to move that thing around and have it shipped,
Yeah.
somewhere. I mean, that's why you go on these like old industrial auctions and you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing these huge like platinum tables and
Yeah.
stuff that are coming out of manufacturing shops. And I would love to have like a huge cast iron platinum table that we can just build a car right on top of, and
Mm-hmm.
you're putting it on hydraulics and stuff like that, and it's like 30 feet long and like 15 feet wide. But how the hell are you going to get that shipped to
Yeah.
your shop?
Yeah.
And let alone what are you going to use to move it off of the semi trailer kind of thing. So I think just the logistics of things too.
Yeah.
So like yeah, the new companies that are out there that are making sheet metal shaping equipment and stuff, they're great, but
Mm-hmm.
like their bases, a lot of their bases and stuff are made out of like 1/8 plate, and they're
Yeah.
very lightweight. So when you're using them, they're kind of moving around the shop floor too.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it would be great to have like a whole thick cast iron base, but what's that going to do as far as shipping and freight for these
Mm-hmm.
companies and
Yeah.
things like that? So I get where they're coming
For
from with
sure.
doing certain things
Mm-hmm.
for the modern age, but um yeah, I mean there's a reason why all that old equipment is still like floating around. I
Yeah.
mean, it's tried, it's tested, it's true, it's the real Magilla,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've
So
got, I'm actually sitting in front of it right now, but I have a Rockwell Model 20 bandsaw,
yeah,
and that thing, the wheels on it are heavy as hell. I mean, they are cast iron,
yeah,
that rotating mass that it moves, like that machine cuts different than an aluminum cast wheel.
sure,
That thing, it's a totally different machine, the way it sits, the way it's built and
yeah,
everything, versus some of these smaller, lighter machines. And you're right, there's a place for it where it's a matter of being able to ship it and move it easily and be more convenient. Uh,
hmm,
some of it I start looking at as like, if you are like that professional, uh, that difference in the quality of how that machine's going to operate for you, I think you'll notice that difference. When you
yeah,
are someone who puts this into practice, that does, you know, you're looking at those fine details. You're going to tell the difference between that cast iron machine and the sheet metal built machine.
sure. Oh yeah, yep, yep. So no, I mean I can tell a difference, in my two different hammers that I have. So I've got an original cast iron Pettengill #1 that was restored, um, and then I listened to podcasts and stuff too, different sheet metal shaping podcasts where they're talking
Mm-hmm.
about adding the wood timbers underneath helps absorb even more of that shock. And so just doing stuff like that, I've done that to all my hammers. And then, um, the original Pettingill #1 came with a linkage where you basically hook a solid stock and then a chain and a 2x4. That's your foot pedal.
Yeah.
And, so learning out at Phase, my first introduction to power hammers, he had built his own hydraulic foot pedal.
Mhm.
So, and I had the one that came off of the Powell, and I'm like, well, I can build this, a little bit better, something a little bit more pleasing to the eye,
Mhm.
and something that performs a little bit better than two. And so just some other metal shapers in the community. There's a few like kind of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And so they had sent me some pictures of their hammer and what they'd use for slave cylinder and stuff like that for the hydraulics versions of it. And so I just kind of designed and built my own, foot pedals. And I think when you're doing that, like you get a little bit of a more deeper understanding of the
Mhm.
equipment too, the
Yeah.
ins and outs of it, versus if you just plug in and just turn it on and just start working with it.
Mhm.
I think when you got you got some stake in the game and you've had to put stuff together for it, I think you understand like the mechanics of it a little bit better
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I've got stuff that's, new equipment. I've got old original equipment and things like that. And it just depends on, what's available, what
Yeah.
you have for a budget. And, there's nothing wrong with any of the
Mhm.
new equipment that's
Yep.
out there.
Yep.
I mean, I've got, I've got Jet stuff. I've got Bailey. I've got Mittler
Same
Brothers,
here. Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean it's all good stuff.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it, and some people they want the new stuff because they can just pick up the phone and order it, or go on the website and order it, and or you can lease it,
Yeah.
and then if there's something wrong with it, there's a warranty,
Mhm.
for it. Like I totally get that. Like you
Yeah.
got to think about it time wise.
Oh yeah, a lot of my
What's
machines I mean just like you restored them,
Yeah,
and that took time.
yep,
Uh Now there's one aspect that I do really enjoy cuz I love equipment. I love seeing like if I could if I ever ran across a certain machine that like just hit me right, I don't know how to use it, but it looks cool and makes me happy when I walk in. I'll
yep,
get it. And
yeah.
there's I think a lot about the aesthetic of old equipment. Like they're beautiful machines just to look at them, just to be
Yes.
around. Like, people don't realize that the equipment kind of got boring after a certain amount of time. Although there's still, I say that, and I probably shouldn't even use the word boring because they're still cool machines. But there's a
Yep.
different build quality to when you look at that a Yoder, an original Yoder, and you
Yeah.
see the cast iron and you see the wood that they use for, certain parts of it and how it was built back then. Uh, the aesthetic from a certain time period. Again, I'm just gonna speak for myself on here. I'm sure you probably share the same. You just feel happier being around it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It's yeah, it can definitely gravitate, towards you. So when you come into my shop and you walk into the office, and then you see the door going out into the shop, half of it's glass. The first thing that you kind of see is there's a car project sitting there, but then you see a double-headed power hammer, and it's all painted in like the olive drab, green color that
hmm
Pettingill painted all their stuff with. And, it just kind of sets the stage, almost like, okay, I have got kind of an idea of what to expect when I'm walking into the shop, like the kind
hmm
of stuff that they're going to be doing,
yeah,
because certainly in this area, I don't think you're ever going to walk into, like in the Chippewa Valley, Wisconsin area, you're going to walk in and see a double-headed, power hammer.
yeah,
So it's definitely like a focal point of the shop, and then it speaks to the kind of of work that we can do
Yeah.
then in here too. So, and yeah, I mean, just how they built things and why they chose to, do the route that they did is it's so cool. So, I mean, we've got the power hammer, and I've got an old lathe from the late 50s, and I've got a Bridgeport, and then next to that's a dual bandsaw from the early 50s.
Great sauce right
That
there.
was, yeah, it was US government. It's got like a brass tag for it. And I
Hmm.
mean, that thing gets used every day,
Hmm.
and it's never had to do anything to it,
Yeah.
great machine,
Hmm.
so yeah, yeah, they definitely thought about the aesthetics of things,
Hmm.
rounding corners and making things pretty,
Hmm.
and the material that they chose for it. There's a reason why they had, brass, machine components on the power hammers, just
Yeah.
because of the, wear and things like that. But it's a cool look too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say, it being a center stage to when you walk in. Uh, do you know Jonathan Goolsby?
I don't know. I mean, I know who he is.
Okay. We actually visited him. I think we met him like 8 years ago,
Okay.
and we went over to his shop, and sure enough, there's a dual head Yoder power hammer completely restored in the
Oh,
shop.
awesome.
Huge machine. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a massive, it's so impressive. And like that thing is burned in my head for the rest of my life. I actually talked to him a few days ago and we were talking about that. And,
Yeah.
and we were talking same subject, about how that just leaves an impression with you.
Yeah.
Uh, but then I had asked him a question that I'll ask you too, because I know the story behind that machine. Do you have any cool stories of machines like that kind of feel like they found their way to you?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten lucky with some of my equipment purchases. So, I've got some like surplus auctions and stuff that I watch. So, like my spot welder that I've got, it's pretty new. Was built for production, water cooled, stuff like that, and brand new. It was probably about $7,000, and I got it for 500, and it's probably got 40 hours on it,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, my first power hammer that I got, I got that from Steve Powell when I came right out of Fay Butler's and got that ordered up. So my Pettingill #1 that I got that from a friend of mine in Connecticut who I actually met while I was going to Fay Butler's.
Hmm.
So at that time, Fay was taking on like three guys at a time, and that was kind of it. And so it was myself and my friend Tim, and then another guy that was from Maine, he was like a welding instructor up there. And so I got to know Tim really well over the years, like since we went to Phase, and that was back in 2013. Yeah, that we went to Phase. Um, so yeah, Tim, he's like me. He's always looking like he's big into metal spinning. He's an amazing welder. So when I met him at Phase, he was working in a place in Philadelphia where they were doing the boiler systems for nuclear class submarines, welding 3-inch thick titanium.
Jeez.
And so you know, his back, he wanted to do like some, passion work, doing sheet metal shaping, stuff like that, getting into motorcycles and stuff. And so yeah, he found, God, this is right at, I think, maybe 2020, something like that. Um, he was on like Facebook Marketplace, and there was like some gal that was on there that had like two of these #1s and then an extra lower arm. And I mean, it was like just like dirt cheap, like just hundreds of dollars.
Oh
And
man.
so he like contacted the person, and he's like, yeah, I can come right now and get them. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, well, I got some guy that's going to come here, tomorrow morning. And, he's interested. He wants to cut them up and make like
No.
custom cable legs for him. He's just like,
No, you don't know what you
whatever he's
got.
offering to pay, I'll pay like double. I don't remember
Yeah.
what it was, but he's like, I'll double it and I'll be there in like 2 hours. And
Yeah.
so he went and picked them up. And so he had them for a few years until like,
Saved.
we talk like maybe, I don't know, once a week, maybe sometimes a little bit less, sometimes even more. But we stay in touch pretty regularly. And so he knew that I was going to build, I wanted a second power hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And just because changing dies, it's a pain in the ass,
Mm-hmm.
like you want to shrink, but then you need to smooth things out and you need to stretch. And it's God, and now I'm at the point where I'd like a hammer for every single radius die that I've got, but I
Yeah.
just don't have the room
Yeah.
for that or the budget for
Yeah.
it. But so he's like, if you want one, I'll sell you the one that's less complete. It's missing some parts, but you can go through Pet and Gill machines. So Hans that started that up down in the Carolinas, and they're building exact copies of the number one, and then they're doing the 2M heavy duty then. And so I contacted him and said like, hey, I've got this hammer here, some pictures of it. Like, I want to send it down, have it restored. And so he's like, yeah, we can do that. And sent me kind of an idea, what it would cost to do that. And so, God, when was it? It was a couple of years ago now, at least. I flew out to Connecticut where my friend Tim lives, and I had never gone out there to visit him since he got married. We were out there for his wedding. Faye Butler was there at the wedding and stuff too, so it was good to see him. And um, so yeah, I went out there and made the deal with Tim, and then hung out with him for kind of a long weekend. And we went up to New Haven for New Haven pizza, and all these other cool places around kind of the area and stuff, and shipped the hammer down, and then got it restored, and then it got shipped up here when it was done. And yeah, it was a process getting everything made, welding
Yeah.
on the pads on the back side of the column. I had to
Mm-hmm.
make another set of outriggers for it, for the rod gusset pieces, and then building the foot pedals too, because I can't do anything like half-ass. So I fabricated and machined all the parts for that stuff, and then got some custom skateboard grip tape with my logo and stuff made for it. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's a really really cool piece of equipment that
Yeah.
it'd be tough not to have. you know.
Yeah, for sure. When I think about these machines, like, the power hammers, and there's all kinds of machines that they, a power hammer is really impressive when you see it. It doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what brand. They're usually really impressive just to look at.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might get intimidated, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Because some of them look like you need 4 years of training just to use the machine. You know,
Yeah.
how do you feel like how, how long did it take for you to at least get pretty proficient with the machine? I'm sure you're learning different things still to this day.
Oh yeah, God. Every time I turn them on, I'm learning something new. Um, but I'm also the kind of person too to like push myself into the areas of unknown where I can figure that stuff out, because I mean, my utopian, goal is to like anything that needs to be built out of metal, like we can do it,
Hmm.
here. Maybe machining is kind of the extent of it. Like we don't have big CNC turning centers, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like you want to build like a complete body and here's some renderings of it, like we can do all of that. Like
Hmm.
that's what I want to be. That's what I strive to be. And it's definitely, obtainable. You've got to figure out how to break it down into manageable pieces and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so Yeah, I got my first hammer in uh, fall of 2013. I machined all my dies in early 2014. So it took a while before I even had the machine, ready to run some stuff on. And about that time, I got my full-time job at the tech school, teaching, and so I kind of shut the shop down for the first winter and everything. So it sat a little dormant for a while, and then started picking away at stuff and learning things. And so, I mean, it's definitely taken, you know, even years to be at the stage that I'm at right now.
Hmm.
A few years ago, I had a friend of mine's shop. They got a power hammer, a new one uh, from a manufacturer that reproduces stuff and or builds their version of it. And so I went out and did some training and stuff with them to teach their guys and stuff like that. And it's kind of the fundamentals. I don't obviously I can't BS, or fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I feel confident that I can do most things on it, but
Hmm.
like I said, it's every day you turn it on, you're learning something new with it.
Yeah.
I think having two where you've got a designated one for shrinking, one for stretching, I think definitely helps things then too
Hmm.
as far as efficiency goes. And now I've got employees, so showing them how to do it because they've never been exposed to it. They've worked in shops where they've had them, but it was kind of like you said, it's a daunting fixture in the shop that it's intimidating.
Yeah.
So I think getting over that part of it, knowing how to break things down into manageable pieces, having an understanding of the material that you're working with, what you're doing to it, what the outcomes are going to be, what the potential issues are going to be. So having that scientific background, like when you add all of that stuff into the formula, like
Hmm.
that's what's going to help you become, successful at being able to make whatever a customer wants you to make.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
you
hell of
know,
a formula too, because it's you're
yeah,
combining book smart. You're combining education, learned experience. I mean, it's you know when it comes to school, and I can't emphasize this enough for people, is you can do the schooling and everything, but until you put it into practice, that's where like your real education starts there.
oh yes, yep, 100%. Yeah, nothing can supplement real life experience.
Yeah.
If you've got 40 hours of a shitty week, that's going to supplement 40 hours of great classroom interaction.
Mhm.
Like that's just, and that goes back to taking the positive out of it. It's
Yeah.
like, man, this week sucked because I tried to make this part and this didn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, well, great, you learned what not to do
Good.
next time.
Yeah.
And yeah, nothing can supplement like work. And that's if somebody wants to know what the secret is to being successful, and I'm not talking like monetary value, like just
Mhm.
being able to build cool shit that
Yeah.
other people think is cool,
Mhm.
like it's just hard work.
Yeah.
Like you've just got to get out there and put the time into it.
Mhm.
If you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, 100 grand, and you want to buy a power hammer, double headed power hammer, great. But like, that's not going to buy you how to use that
Mhm.
hammer. Like, you've got to just put in the time. And you can go to classes and you can learn from these people. And nowadays, like with YouTube, and there's great people that are on there that are doing YouTube videos. There's
Yeah.
great people that are on social media that are doing awesome stuff. And that stuff like didn't exist like when I first got into the trades in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I follow a bunch of those guys and I watch stuff and I learn stuff from them all the time. Like
Yeah.
and then they're not like, super, super well-known people,
Mhm.
they're, they've definitely got a great following and they do amazing work. And they're in some instances, they're probably the best, in their trade, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, and guaranteed the people that are, the ones that are in the magazines and stuff are watching those guys' videos,
Mm-hmm.
to implement that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because you can buy the machine doesn't mean that you're just going to be able to start turning out parts.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes hundreds or thousands of hours to figure out how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And there's some things that are way more challenging than others. And I mean, I love all of it. I think it's when you've got to shape stuff on the power hammer, you need to have your full focus with
Mm-hmm.
that. So, it's putting your earbuds in, playing some good music, and, you know, not answering the phone,
Yeah.
being able to just stay focused, like right on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I got one more question for you. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to get better at like making sure I ask this question because it's a universal one to me. Doesn't matter what aspect of the industry. And where's the creativity come from?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing that's helped me over the years is that I like to be the first one in the shop, but I most certainly like to be the last one in the shop. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
be in the shop like even late at night, which is great because I, live on the property. And so I will go out to the shop and, I'll put some good music on and I walk like trenches around the projects and
Mm-hmm.
can just mentally like formulate like what I'm going to be doing next to each one of those cars. And I think influences depends on the era of the car,
Mm-hmm.
um, but we've got some designers that we work with, stuff like that. But I like to figure out like all that stuff on my own too.
Mm-hmm.
Look at their renderings and then figure out how I can break that stuff down.
Yeah.
I think every time you can implement a new piece of equipment, like when I had got my Polmax machine and I started learning that and figuring out like how that machine works, and then it's like, God, your imagination is really your limitation
Mm-hmm.
for that machine.
Yeah.
Because I built dies that are like 2 or 3 step dies in order to get the end result that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And social media is huge. Like there's guys that are on there that are building stuff that's just like it's wild. And like a lot of them are, they're open to tell you how they do it. And I've had multiple people contact me like, how did you do this? How did you get
Mm-hmm.
started? And I'm more than willing to share that stuff too, because I
Yeah.
think that's just it's part of the network. I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like threatened or anything like that they're going to be taking work away from me. I think there's more than enough work to last, everybody.
Oh
So
yeah.
um so I think getting in the different equipment and seeing what you're able to do with all of that stuff, I think just opens up the door to so many other opportunities with
Mm-hmm.
things. And now we've got a 3D printer, so working with that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
SolidWorks, and we've done SolidWorks with um, chassis and stuff then too. So I think that technology helps out. I mean, we love, our old school manual equipment and stuff, but like when you get into doing like these cars for Detroit Autorama and stuff like that, you've got a machine shop on board to be doing the wheels, they're doing the trim, they're doing all kinds of stuff for it. And it's like, well, now we've got all this downtime. We're waiting for this stuff to come back. And then we've got this bezel, but we can't, it's not like we can put this on here and cut the dash down and be welding around it. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is worth tens of thousands of dollars potentially.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to hurt it. So that's where like the 3D printer came involved. And like me being a control freak, like I want to be able to design and 3D print and then use that stuff for, our mock-up, our fabrication processes. like things like that, and then we've got the file built, and then we send it out and have the stuff machined then out of aluminum, and then it's
Hmm.
painted or chrome plated or that kind of stuff. So I think the technology then too, like there's you know the creativity open, is the door is open as far as that
Yeah.
goes. And then yeah, I think just being able to see like what other people are doing too on
Hmm.
social media is big, so like all the stuff that I do on social media, most of it's not personal,
Hmm.
even on Facebook, it's all, like, I think geared towards the business and
Yeah.
like the stuff that I'm interested in, things like that. And then seeing like what all these other automotive industries have as far as like their budgets and things like that goes. Like, I love Formula One racing. I love the world of Formula One, like what they do in their factories, the stuff that's behind the scenes, like their engineering, their development, like things like that. So we've definitely gotten involved in cars that are kind of purpose built, like vintage race cars that are going
Hmm.
out on the track. And so they've got to look the part, but then they've also got to be able to do 150 miles an hour
Yeah.
in, on the racetrack. So everything's, you're looking at history, you're looking at the technology of things. Like,
Hmm.
I think all of that stuff like plays a huge important role in the creativity of things. And then I love art, the classic artwork, stuff like that. So like when we did the gram that went out to the Detroit Autorama, when I designed and built the engine bay, like how everything was laid out as far as the mechanical work of it, the shapes of the inner fenders, and how it came off the firewall. It was, we wanted like kind of a constant motion. So your eyes were drawn across it. So the shapes that we chose out, like that's your eyes never stopped at one focal point. It was just a
Hmm.
constant motion. And so that was also a slogan of Graham was um, art in motion too. So I think tapping into that kind of stuff as well, I think helps with the creativity of
Hmm.
everything.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of it, of what you're saying is being present, paying attention to your peers, paying attention to the projects, to the things that interest you, and how those speak to you,
Hmm.
where you can translate a lot of these things into your everyday life and the things you're working on.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally see that. To me, that's part of what makes I've been doing this rebrand from our last name to Automotive Practitioner, and a lot of it is to encompass those thoughts of going, well, this is a practice. Like what we do, whether it's metal shaping, paint and body, TIG welding, all these different aspects, it's a practice.
Mhm.
And we're working on it constantly. And, putting your thought into it, it really makes it makes it sound like in that practice, you're also getting that creativity that's coming and speaking to you while you basically, yeah, dig into the trenches and learn as much as you can and grow from the different projects you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you said, it's part of the practice. So it's an everyday occurrence, and you're looking at everything that you're doing throughout the day, and making adjustments then too. But you've got your baseline stuff like that, but it's something that you're definitely looking at in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
then planning from there.
Yeah, yeah. And the next project might take you a totally different curve from the last one. So you're always it's a practice. You're constantly changing and moving into different aspects or different styles, or you know, making your equipment
Yes.
do something that it really wasn't designed for, and it's constantly changing. I love that.
Yeah. So the guy that I worked on that Zephyr, the first restoration shop that came in, and he's been a great mentor over the years. And So, being me who I was at the time, I asked him, I said, what's the hardest car you've ever built? And he said, that's easy. It was the last one. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because I wanted it to be. Like, it should also be my best car too,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how it should be.
Yeah.
You should be continuing to push yourself every project that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're doing a 32 Ford and the last car that you did was a 32 Ford, this 32 Ford that you're building right now should be the best one that you've
Mm-hmm.
ever done,
Yeah.
because of those reasons,
Yeah.
because you're self-reflecting, you're in the moment, you're using the technology, you're using the tools, you're figuring out, more efficient ways of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
better quality. Like, you're damn right, it should be the best car
Yeah.
that you should
Yeah.
be doing. And if you're not pushing yourself, then maybe you should be looking for a different position
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
different career path, you know.
So every next project should be the goal. This is going to be better than the last.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, was it Ferdinand Porsche said that? Like, you know, um, you should be expecting excellence at every project. That should be your expectation.
Well, I think that's a great way to end the podcast. So, Trent, this was great. Man, I really appreciate you taking the time and digging into some of your knowledge base, because I love seeing the work that you do, and I appreciate it, and I like having conversations like this. Uh, where can people find you on Instagram?
Yeah, so I'm at Midwest Metalworks on Instagram, Facebook right now. So I'm redoing my website, and I've been told that I need to have a Facebook business page, so that's in the works. But right now, Facebook is just Trent Lewis. My link to my website is on, if you go to my profile on Instagram, it'll be on there. And then we're going to be relaunching here probably in a few weeks. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to check it out. So that's
Cool.
at Midwest Metalworks.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, thanks again. It's great talking to you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, good time. Thank
All right, another episode down. Hey, my name's Miguel, and thanks for listening to the Automotive Artistry Podcast. I really started this podcast because I've had these conversations with people in the industry. I've been fortunate enough to be around some really, really talented people that have put their time in. And I have these conversations, and a lot of us are thinking the same thing, and a lot of us are really wanting to dive deeper into this kind of stuff that we do. And, whether it's something that maybe we relate to or something that we just, we just the observations we have in our daily practice of what we do. But we don't really hear it out there. So I'm having these conversations so that we get more of this stuff out there, and we all start talking about this stuff and start making this industry something way better, because it's heading in the right direction. And the more we talk, the better this is going to get. And there's some great minds out there, and we're fortunate to live in a time where we can talk to even some of the older generation that's got a lot of wisdom that a lot of us should hear. So, but in any case, thanks for listening. Listen, if you want to help support the podcast, right now, what we have is our merchandise store. You can go there. We got a bunch of stuff on there that we're going to be adding more since we've been doing this new rebrand. And you're going to start seeing stuff from the Automotive Practitioner page, the podcast page, the Working Class Women. So you'll start seeing some more stuff there. We're going to offer some other things for the future too. And a lot of that stuff just helps support us because it costs money to do these things, and it helps us do more. And I got some big plans for this podcast because I believe in it. I believe in the guests. I believe in the people listening, and I want to be able to do more with it. So, anyways, thanks for listening, and thanks for your interest in the Automotive Artistry Podcast.